and nobody really wants to eat scrambled eggs in their cake. It's not a good look. Okay, my name is Nadia and welcome back to my YouTube channel. August is a super busy month in my family. We had Bubba's birthday on the 13th, which if you haven't seen her cake yet, now's your time to do so. And then coming up, we have my sister's birthday on the 20th, my nephew's birthday on the 21st, my mom's birthday on the 22nd, and my niece's birthday on the 23rd. So that's 4 birthdays in 4 days, which is a lot. So we're gonna have one big party on Saturday, and you guessed it, well, maybe you didn't guess it, but it's gonna be Paw Patrol themed. If I'm being honest, this party is kind of way more for the kids. So on that note, let's get cooking. My niece requested a chocolate cake for her birthday, so I'm gonna make my absolute favorite chocolate cake, which if you are also a chocolate lover, you're going to absolutely drool over this one. It's super rich, it's super dense, everybody absolutely loves it, except for my mom who always says it's a little too sweet, but it's fine because you can always reduce the sugar. So let's get to the cake. I'm making 3 layers for this cake, but I'm gonna give you the recipe for 1 layer, which is gonna fit perfectly in an 18 by 13 inch pan, which is what I'm using today. To get this cake started, I'm going to beat half a cup of room temperature butter until it's creamy, and then I'm gonna scrape the bowl and add a 1/4 cup of sugar. When that's all combined, I'm gonna scrape the bottom again and add 4 eggs one at a time. I didn't let the eggs warm up to room temperature, so you see when I mix them in with the butter, it gets a little clumpy, but it's fine, we can move past it, it's not gonna ruin the cake. It's more of just a note to self. Take the eggs out of the fridge sooner. And of course, we can't forget the teaspoon of vanilla. While that's doing its thing, you can measure out the dry ingredients, and because I'm making 3 layers for this cake, I'm gonna measure everything out all at once because I already have all the ingredients out, so why not? In each bowl, I'm adding 1 1/4 cup of flour, sifted, 1/3 cup of cocoa powder, also sifted, 3 teaspoons of baking soda, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm just gonna combine it and then we're gonna add it to the mixer a scoop at a time. I have the mixer on stir or a level 1 speed so flour doesn't go everywhere, and of course we always pause and scrape the bottom of the bowl so everything mixes nicely together. The next part is what makes this cake amazing. You're going to measure out 1 1/2 cups of chocolate syrup and 1/2 cup of water. And while the mixer is on stir, alternate adding the chocolate syrup and the water. I aim to do about 1/3 at a time. I'm also now just realizing that I made a little bit of a mistake. I should have alternated adding the chocolate syrup, water, and the dry ingredients instead of just the chocolate syrup and the water, which makes a lot more sense now than it did when I was making this cake. I kind of just wanted to get it done and over with, which also proves that patience is very, very necessary when baking. But in my defense, nothing went wrong. It still blended all together, so I mean, take what you will from this little TED Talk that I'm giving you right now. Make sure that's all properly combined, and then we're gonna pour the batter into a pan lined with parchment paper. Like always, I brush my pan with a little bit of oil so the parchment paper sticks and doesn't move. And then this is gonna bake at 350 for 15 to 20 minutes or until a toothpick inserted in the middle comes out clean. Once the layers cool, I stack them with the parchment paper in between and wrap them in saran wrap until I was ready to assemble the cake. The filling for this cake is probably the best filling I've ever had in my entire life. I like to call it a chocolate bechamel sauce, which will make sense in a few minutes. I also doubled this recipe, so I'm going to be explaining the doubled version to you, but of course you can find the single batch explained down below. But really, the more of this filling, the better, so I just, even if you eat it with a spoon after, trust me, it's really, really good. In a pot over medium heat, we're going to combine 2/3 of a cup flour, 6 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of salt. Then we're gonna whisk in 3 1/2 cups of milk and 2 cups of chocolate syrup, making sure to whisk consistently. You wanna get all the clumps out and make sure everything's combined. But as you can see, I do have a few clumps in there, which is fine. I just really work those through because we're gonna be whisking this for a few minutes until it thickens. When it does thicken up, you're gonna remove it from the heat, and this is where things get a little bit complicated. Pay attention. In a separate bowl, or in this case the measuring cup I used for the milk, I'm going to lightly beat 2 eggs and add a scoop or 2 of the hot chocolate filling to the eggs and whisk like crazy. You kind of have to do this step because if you added beaten egg into a big hot pot of chocolate sauce, the egg would just cook, it would scramble. Trust me, I've been there, I've done that. You have to start all over again and it's not fun. Once it's properly combined, you can add it back into the pot and turn the heat up back to medium. Keep whisking, and once it comes to a gentle boil, you can add the butter and vanilla and then whisk until it's all combined. I transferred the filling into a few different bowls so it could cool faster, and in the meantime, we can get started on the cream cheese frosting. In a stand mixer fitted with the paddle attachment, beat the butter, scrape the bowl, then add 2 bricks of room temperature cream cheese. When that's all combined, start adding the icing sugar a few spoonfuls at a time, And of course, it's gonna be on the lowest speed because otherwise, icing sugar is just gonna go everywhere. Exactly. I measured out 4 cups of icing sugar, but I actually ended up using closer to 6 just because I wanted to get the right consistency. If you were just spreading the cream cheese frosting on the cake and you didn't really need it to hold its shape, 4 cups would be enough. But if you're planning to pipe it like I am, then 6 cups or honestly even 7 is better. You want it to be thick so it holds its shape. That being said, if you do add too much icing sugar, you can thin it out by adding a little bit of milk. Also been there, done that. It's an easy fix, it's just a little inconvenient, it's fine. All right, so we have our cake layers, we have our chocolate filling, and we have our cream cheese frosting. I think we're ready to put it all together. I transferred the first cake layer to a board and then spread half the chocolate filling on top. Then I added the second cake layer, spread the other half of the chocolate filling, and finished it off with the third cake layer. And it's okay if your layers aren't perfect, you can use the filling to make everything level and kind of use your hands to squish things together. It's not the prettiest thing, it gets dirty, but it works. Then I just took a little bit of the cream cheese frosting and did a crumb coat. You don't really need to do a crumb coat with this cake, it's not a super crumbly texture or anything like that. I just like doing it, it makes sense to me. Once the crumb coat was done, I just popped the cake in the fridge so everything could solidify, and then I actually got my mom to finish the cake off. So she basically did the exact same thing as the crumb coat, just taking some cream cheese frosting and spreading it all evenly around the cake. She's very, very patient with these things, so she was able to make it super smooth, and if I'm being honest, this is probably like my least favorite part about cake decorating. She's a perfectionist in that sense, and she does a really good job, so I just left it to the pro. The cake sat in the fridge overnight, and then the next morning, also the morning of the party, I decorated it. Like I said, the theme of the party is Paw Patrol, and my niece and nephew are super big fans of Sky and Chase. So I found a picture of each pup that I thought worked, and I imported it to Canva along with the Paw Patrol letters so I could spell my niece and nephew's name underneath. I tried a few different designs, and once I found one that I liked, I traced it to parchment paper, then poked holes in the parchment paper with a toothpick and a clean sponge. As I learned when making the office cake, the more holes you poke in your stencil, the easier it is to transfer to the cake. I cut out each of the pups and the names, and then I poked it onto the cake. I also recommend that after every few pokes you connect the dots, because if you wait to the end, it's just going to get messy and confusing. I also decided that it was going to be a great idea to outline the drawings with black icing, which I did with the Wilton number 14 tip, but it was way too bulky, so I ended up using the number 2 instead. I'm also using a pre-made icing, which I'll link down below, but it's great if you need just a little bit of one color or you don't have time to make the icing. I honestly love it, I swear by it. I'm quite impressed because looking at the video, the piping looks really good, but up close the lines were shaky and crooked, but it all worked out in the end. Once I finished the outline, I went back to using the number 14 tip and I filled in the pups. I used the cream cheese icing and I just added a little bit of brown food coloring from Wilton to get the right shades, and then I just piped away. Please excuse the mess. I did not realize that this was all in the shot, but also enjoy the raw footage of a baker in the wild. Each pup took about 30 minutes to complete, and when they were filled, I went back to the black icing and just touched up some of the details that were covered, like the smile and the whiskers. I followed the same steps for the names, and then I decided that I was going to do a border. I took what icing I had left, and I decided that I was going to do a swirly tie-dye technique. I really like this technique because you can use all your icing, and it just looks super cool and fun at the end. To do this technique, you just have to lay down some saran wrap on your counter, and then pipe a few lines of icing. I had lots of blue left over, and then I added some white and pink to kind of break it up, and I thought they would mix well together. Kind of got a little bit of a purple tinge, but that's okay. Once you like how it looks, roll the saran wrap like a sushi roll and twist the ends. You're gonna cut one of the ends off and then place the whole thing in a piping bag. I use the number 18 tip, and then you just pipe away. I don't really know what to call this pattern. I guess it's kind of a take on the seashell border, but way less professional. And then after that, the cake was done. I think the cake turned out perfectly. It's not professional by any means, but I definitely pushed myself a little bit and tried something new. And I'm glad I did because, I mean, I think it's great. I need to show the camera. I have goosebumps. I'm not gonna lie, this is actually like almost a week old. It still tastes amazing. My mom said it tastes like a brownie, but not just any brownie. We all know those 2-bite brownies that are really like kind of crunchy on the outside and soft on the inside. Imagine that, but with like a chocolate filling. Words, there are no words. I've been making this cake for quite a while. I used to bring it to school for like the end of year party, and everybody always loved it. It's delicious. And I have to give myself a little pat on the back because my niece and nephew recognized Chase and Sky on the cake, so I didn't completely mess them up. They were recognizable. So all in all, it was a great party. I have my pup's cake, my pup's plate, my pup's cup. I really don't need anything else. This is amazing. That's all from me this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next Friday. Bye. These are made for kids, but I mean, like, it's not bad. Oh no! They're like, the eyes are too close together. It's a little hard to see.
You got this.
You kind of have to do, Mom! The piping bag opened. As I learned when making the office cake, the more holes you poke, I used the number 2 tip, and then I used the number 8. What was it? Did you like your pup's birthday, Mom?
I know you're whispering because you don't want to be in the video, but you're gonna be in it anyway, so you might as well speak up.